Indiana Hazmat Permit Practice Test Review. Welcome to the crossroads of America. Transporting hazardous materials through Indiana's industrial corridors and metro areas like Indianapolis or the Gary, Hammond region requires a deep understanding of both state and federal safety regulations. Let's lock in these hazmat essentials. What federal regulation governs hazmat transport by road in Indiana? 49 CFR Parts 100 to 185 Hazardous Materials Regulations administered by PHMSA. These are the nationwide rules that keep every hazmat load consistent and safe across state lines. Next question. What state agency enforces hazmat transportation on Indiana highways? Indiana State Police in coordination with federal PHMSA and FMCSA. If you are hauling hazmat in Indiana, the state police are the primary ones ensuring you are following the law. Continuing, what endorsement permits a CDL holder to transport hazmat in Indiana? H endorsement requiring TSA threat assessment and written knowledge test. This specific endorsement proves you have the knowledge and the background clearance to handle dangerous loads. Let's move on. What federal agency conducts the hazmat endorsement background check? TSA Transportation Security Administration. They vet every driver to ensure that high-risk materials stay in the right hands. Next point. How often must the TSA threat assessment be renewed? Every 5 years. Security clearances are not forever. You have to stay current to keep that H endorsement on your license. Continuing, who is ineligible for a hazmat endorsement in Indiana? A person who is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident or has certain felony convictions within 7 years. Federal law is very strict about who is permitted to move these sensitive materials. Next question. What are the 9 hazard classes? Class 1 explosives, Class 2 gases, Class 3 flammable liquids, Class 4 flammable solids, Class 5 oxidizers, Class 6 toxic, Class 7 radioactive, Class 8 corrosive, Class 9 miscellaneous. Memorizing these is the foundation of hazmat safety. Each one requires specific handling. Let's keep going. What is the hazmat table in 49 CFR used for? Identifying materials by proper shipping name, UN numbers, hazard classes, packing groups, and label requirements. Think of it as the ultimate reference guide for every hazardous material known to the dot. Next point, what is the proper shipping name, PSN? The official dot name in the hazmat table used on shipping papers, markings, and placards. You must use the exact name listed in the table. Nicknames for chemicals are not allowed on legal documents. Continuing, what must appear on a hazmat shipping paper? Proper shipping name, UN number, hazard class, packing group, total quantity, and 24-hour emergency contact. Every piece of this information is vital for first responders in case of an accident. Next question. Where must shipping papers be when the driver is in the cab? Within immediate reach in the seat or door pouch. If something goes wrong, you, or a rescuer, need to be able to grab those papers instantly. Let's move on. Where must shipping papers be when the driver is outside the vehicle? In clear view on the driver's seat or door pouch visible from outside. Emergency crews need to know what they are dealing with before they even open the door. Next point, what is required of the emergency contact number on a shipping paper? Monitored 24 hours by someone knowledgeable about the material and able to provide response guidance. A machine or an answering service is not enough. A real person with technical knowledge must be available. Continuing, what is Chemtrec and what is its number? A 24-hour chemical emergency response center at 1-800-424-9300 providing technical guidance. They are the industry standard for providing immediate help during a chemical spill. Next question. What is the National Response Center, NRC, and when must it be called? The Federal Center at 1-800-424-8802 notified immediately when a reportable quantity is released. The NRC is the single point of contact for reporting environmental emergencies to the federal government. Let's keep going. What is a reportable quantity, RQ? An EPA-designated amount that if released requires immediate federal notification. Each chemical has its own specific limit. If you spill more than that amount, the feds must know. Next point, what does RQ before a material name on a shipping paper mean? The load contains a hazardous substance at or above the EPA reportable quantity requiring notification if released. This RQ notation is a red flag for you to pay extra attention to that specific part of your load. Continuing, What are placards and what size must they be? Diamond-shaped signs at least 10.8 inches per side placed on all four sides of the vehicle. These are the large warning signs that tell everyone on the road what you are carrying. Next question. On how many sides must placards be displayed? All four sides, front, rear, and both lateral sides. Visibility from every angle is required so responders can identify the hazard from any direction. Let's move on. What distinguishes a placard from a label? Placards are large 10.8-inch diamonds on the vehicle. Labels are small 4-inch diamonds on individual packages. Placards warn the public about the truck. Labels warn the handler about the box. Next point. When does a Table 1 hazmat require placarding? Any quantity, even a single package, regardless of weight. Table 1 materials are the nasty ones, like explosives or poison gas, that are dangerous in any amount. Continuing. When does a Table 2 hazmat require placarding? At 1,001 pounds or more present in the vehicle. For most common materials like flammable liquids, you don't need placards until you hit this weight threshold. Next question. When is the dangerous placard used? When two or more Table 2 categories total 1,001 pounds and no single category individually requires its own placard. It's a way to summarize a mixed load, but you can always choose to use specific placards instead. Let's keep going. What does PGI indicate? Greatest danger requiring the most stringent packaging. The packing group, PG, tells you how hazardous the substance is, with Roman numeral I being the most volatile. Next point. What is a poison inhalation hazard, PIH, material? A gas or liquid toxic when inhaled requiring a toxic inhalation hazard placard plus any other required placard. These materials are extremely lethal if they leak into the air, requiring maximum warning. Continuing. What is the URG and where must it be kept? A DOT publication for first responder guidance kept in the cab accessible to the driver at all times. The Emergency Response Guidebook is your play-by-play manual for handling the first 30 minutes of a spill. Next question. What does the orange section of the URG contain? Materials listed numerically by UNID number cross-referenced to guide pages. This is where you find the specific safety instructions once you have the material's ID number. Let's move on. What does the green section of the URG contain? Initial isolation and protective action distances for toxic inhalation and water-reactive materials. This section tells you exactly how far back to clear people out to keep them from being poisoned. Next point. What is the correct action when a hazmat leak is found during transport? Stop safely away from people, notify emergency services, and follow URG without attempting personal repair. You are a driver, not a chemist. Your job is to isolate the area and call for help. Continuing. What Indiana-specific reporting is required after a hazmat incident? Immediately notify the NRC at 1-800-424-8802 and Indiana State Police if a reportable quantity is released and file a PHMSA written report within 30 days. Indiana requires both immediate verbal notice and a follow-up written record for the authorities. Next question. What Indiana-specific hazmat concern applies to transport near the Gary and Hammond area? The Northwest Indiana Industrial Corridor has high hazmat traffic density and carriers must comply with local routing restrictions and may face additional LEPC notification requirements. This area is a heavy-duty industrial zone. You have to be extra careful with local ordinances here. Let's keep going. What applies to hazmat transport through the Indianapolis metro area? Certain hazmat classes may be restricted from specific tunnels and urban corridors and carriers should use INDOT-designated hazmat routes. Avoid the inner loop if you are carrying restricted loads. Stick to the designated bypasses. Next point. Where is parking a loaded hazmat vehicle prohibited? Near flames, within 300 feet of tunnels, bridges, or buildings, and near crowds unless an emergency exists. A parked hazmat truck is a potential target or hazard. Keep it away from people and infrastructure. Continuing. What attendance rule applies to Division 1? 1, 2, or 1, 3 explosives? Must be attended at all times by someone aware of the hazard and able to move the vehicle. You cannot just leave a load of high explosives sitting in a parking lot while you go inside for a meal. Next question. What is the minimum convoy distance between vehicles carrying Division 1? 1 explosives? At least 300 feet. If one truck has an issue, you want enough space so the other truck isn't caught in the chain reaction. Let's move on. What hazmat route requirements apply in Indiana? Federally designated routes, INDOT-approved corridors, and local routes with certain materials restricted from tunnels, bridges, and urban streets. Always plan your trip using hazmat-specific maps to avoid getting stuck or fined on a restricted road. Next point, what is notable about I-65, I-70, and I-94 for Indiana hazmat drivers? These are primary hazmat corridors with weigh stations and inspection checkpoints where Indiana State Police regularly verify hazmat compliance. Expect more frequent inspections on these major arteries. Keep your paperwork perfect. Continuing, what is a Local Emergency Planning Committee, LEPC, in Indiana? A community body under EPCRA coordinating local hazmat response. Carriers may need to notify the LEPC for certain shipments. They are the local experts who make sure the town is ready for any chemical emergencies. Next question. What is EPCRA and how does it relate to Indiana hazmat carriers? The Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act requiring hazmat release reporting and information sharing with local emergency planners. It's all about transparency. The public has a right to know about dangerous chemicals in their area. Let's keep going. What is a security plan and who must have one? A written plan required by 49 CFR for carriers of high-consequence dangerous goods covering personnel, en route, and shipment security. If you carry enough of certain materials, you must have a formal plan to prevent theft or sabotage. Next point, what are high-consequence dangerous goods, HCDG? Materials that could cause mass casualties if weaponized, including certain explosives, toxic inhalation hazards, and radioactive materials. These are the worst-case materials that require the highest level of security. Continuing, what must a driver do if the shipment appears tampered with? Do not move the vehicle, notify law enforcement and the carrier immediately, and follow the security plan. Never ignore a broken seal or a weird smell. Treat every anomaly as a potential threat. Next question, what is the compatibility rule for loading multiple hazmat classes? Certain classes must be segregated because they react dangerously. For example, explosives cannot be loaded with corrosives. Mixing the wrong chemicals can cause a fire, explosion, or toxic cloud before you even leave the dock. Let's move on. What must a driver do if asked to load incompatible materials? Refuse the load as regulations prohibit transporting reactive materials together. It is your license and your life on the line. You have the legal right to refuse an unsafe load. Next point. What fire extinguisher is required on an Indiana CDL hazmat vehicle? At minimum A10B, C extinguisher or 25B, C units in the cab accessible to the driver. Standard trucks use A5B, C, but hazmat requires more firefighting power. Continuing, what is the penalty for hauling hazmat without a valid endorsement in Indiana? Federal and state fines, CDL disqualification, and possible criminal charges. The authorities don't play around with hazmat. You must be properly licensed. Next question. What is the maximum federal civil penalty for a serious hazmat violation? Up to $84,107 per day, per violation. The fines are massive because the risks to the public are so high. Let's keep going. What does a white diamond placard with a black propeller symbol indicate? Class 7 radioactive material. The trefoil, or propeller, is the universal symbol for radiation hazards. Next point, what does a red placard with a white flame indicate? Class 3 flammable liquid or Class 2 Division 2. 1 flammable gas depending on text. Red always means fire. Be extremely careful with heat and sparks around these loads. Continuing, what does a yellow placard with a flame over a circle indicate? Class 5 Division 5. 1 oxidizer. These materials don't just burn, they provide oxygen to make other fires burn even more intensely.